Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo has indicated that he knows what he's doing. He needs the size of government as it is currently to be able to deliver to the people of Ghana the goodies he promised. What do you think?
I think this conversation was made earlier when he appointed, I think, more than 100, about 120 people to his government. And then he was making the argument that he was in a rush, needed a lot of people to
That's
do.
right. He's a man in a hurry.
First, then he said to, especially following a lot of public outcry, he brought it down to around 80. But that's besides the point. I think the issue has been the size of government as it eats into the public expenditure, because the more people you put in such places, the more money you expend on them. But besides their salaries, they are also getting all kinds of ridiculous allowances and all that. So the size of government has been an issue with us, because the Constitution does not place a cap. The Constitution actually protects just about 20 core members of government. And beyond that, presidents have had the leeway of appointing as many, creating as many ministries as well, and appointing people to those. And that is something that we need to check. I think there must be a cap on it. And whenever a president wants to appoint a new minister or create a new ministry, there must be a stringent process, including approval from Parliament. Right. I don't think this easy way of any president going to bed and getting up the next morning and dreaming about something and creating a ministry, I don't think that's the proper way we have to do in terms of governing ourselves. So that in itself is a problem. Additionally, reducing the size of government, we always focus on the number of ministers. That is not it. There's more to it than that.
What is there?
Government appointees all over the place is what we have to be interested in. How many people should a president appoint to his household, where we call the Jubilee House? How many government agencies must be created, and with what kind of reasons?
Right.
Look, if you look at certain agencies that we create as government, and especially those that are not productive, they are just created to take care of some stuff. And people are made CEOs, at times with 3 or 4 deputy CEOs with cars and allowances and all. That is another issue we have to be looking at. Because if you are creating an agency, especially in a country such as ours, where our economy is almost on its knees, and you are creating agencies to consume but not to create wealth. In other words, you are not creating wealth. So I guess the point I'm making is that the size of government is not only limited to the number of people appointed to the cabinet, but the whole concept of governance and the structure and the size, that I think is what we have to be also interested in.
Will you ever be listened to?
Say it again, please.
You have made these points over the years. Would anybody listen to you?
Well, that has been part of our problem, because you see, when people are in government, especially when they are lawyers, they tend to be more inclined to look at the law or the Constitution in making their decisions. So whenever the Constitution in particular places no limit, then they think they are doing the right thing because they are allowed by the Constitution. You see, but government is not just only laws. Lawyers tend to think everything in our life should be laws. At times you use simple common sense.
Right.
You just look at what is going on and make some adjustments. So you don't stick to laws whenever you are making this kind of... There's a human side to everything that you do. So if you ask me, are we listening to? Well, I don't know. We are talking now. I don't know who is really tuning in and listening to this. But the fact is that there are so many avenues for government to get public opinion, and whether they listen to the opinion and think it's a good opinion they want to use is something else. But that's why I thought it's important to have a certain prescriptions in law. especially when we have done this for 30 years. And we know that because there's no limit on how many ministers and how many agencies a president can create,
right,
because of this loose thing, and you take advantage and come and say, I want 200 ministers, or I want this, or like somebody is promising, if I'm president, I'll give allowances to that. If I'm president, I'll create this. As if they come into government and everything that we have as a country belongs to them, and they decide how to use it. You see, that's what the problem is. Because if you listen to the ongoing campaign right now, and you look at the promises people are making, despite the fact that they know that we don't even have money in their checker, which means when they come to fulfill that, they have to go and borrow again. And it's the borrowing that's how it brought us to where we are, and they continue to promise. Is it? So I think there's something fundamentally wrong, that you become a president, and all of a sudden, everything the country belongs to you, and you decide how to use it. That is the fundamental issue here.
But Prof, we have the likes of you. I mean, Prof, and many other thinking minds like you. And sometimes we, the younger generation, wonder why nobody pays attention to the things you say, especially with your international exposure. I mean, we're just 6 months away from the next election. People will go in queue to make a decision as to who leads us next. They have options, but will people be making the decision based on what the right-thinking members of society have said and have espoused, or would they just be voting because they see a party color?
Well, unfortunately, it's the latter. That is true. People look at the party color. More and more, I think people are also beginning to look at issues, look at the quality of people involved and the quality of statements that they make. But that is still on the small side. I think majority of our people, I don't know, I don't want to attribute it to poverty. Politicians will go in and promise them, they don't think. When I talk of poverty, there are two things here: poverty of the mind and the poverty in the real sense of material deprivation. Maybe because of that, they can go in and make all these promises and give them either 5 CDs. Because, look, even in the primaries, we hear that delegates are giving 5,000. And they themselves come publicly to say, it's not that like me saying it. We all listen to this, we hear it, and we all laugh.
Right.
And they continue to do it, you see. So we have a serious challenge. The electorate, even though at times politicians are smart, also, the electorate has becoming more discerning. It's not true. They go into the villages and use money and other things and buy them off. Presently, it happened. Just a few months ago, by elections, it happened. And I'm sure it's going to be repeated in the upcoming elections. Otherwise, they wouldn't, candidates will not go around the country and be making promises that they know too well they cannot fulfill. You see, but I guess that's what the game is, and that is not that's not helping us. If in the bigger countries, developed, advanced countries, U.S., Britain, their politicians do that, doesn't bother me, because they have a strong economy. You can tinker it here and then. They can still be making their living. But in a country like ours, that is totally dependent on the external welfare of our people. Even food that we eat, tomatoes, onion, we import. Such a country, and we don't have serious-minded people to tell us, to lead us to overcome that. That, for me, anytime I think about that, I get worried.
Prof, have we turned the corner?
What corner, man? What corner?
Well, we're told that we have turned the corner. Our economic situation is going to get better because we have navigated the corner. We have brought debt restriction.
Economic corner. Look, if well, I don't know, maybe some people have turned the corner. I don't see any corner that have turned. But the thing is that if you look at the gravity of our situation in terms of how deep the economy has sunk, and in terms of even the kinds of ideas that you are getting from our candidates to help us to get out of this. If you look at all that, then I'm afraid that I don't know what corner we have turned. Look, I'm not an economist, but when I speak to people with that knowledge,
Right.
I think we are in a very deep hole. And it's clear, you don't have to be an economist to know that. Any country that is not able to feed itself, for me, that's number one. That's why I always refer to a champion's time, as bad as people think he was. That he was able to create something he calls Operation Feed Yourself, for us to grow everything, including rice that we are spending about $1 billion to import today. We were able to grow and export rice between 1974, 75, 76.
Right.
If you cannot feed yourself and you are going to use your scarce foreign exchange to import bananas and that kind of stuff, then you're in a serious problem. So let's be serious about feeding ourselves first. Let's be serious about how we manage our natural resources. We cannot always be giving licenses to foreigners to come in and take the gold and give us 10% and we are happy. You see, these are the critical issues. So fundamentally, there's something wrong with the way we are managing ourselves. And I wish that should be the issues that all of us should begin to probe and get our potential presidents to think about, so that when they are making their plans, when they are doing, I don't know what they call manifesto or whatever, then they should be serious about what measures should be taken to gradually wean this country away from the overdependence on the IMF and the other thing. The other day here, maybe we have succeeded in restructuring our debt.
That's right.
Inflation. Anyway.
Prof, you wrote a book about the late General Kutwe Champon. I read it cover to cover, and it's important to state that he was the only leader of the country who never took us to the IMF. Now, if you look at the values that he upheld and what we see today, at least in the Fourth Republican disposition, would you say that we have backtracked?
Well, backtrack is even, I think, is a very soft word here. It all depends on a vision that a leader has for his country. If you think your country has dignity, the people that you are, the country that you are leading must be respected. The country that you're leading should not be forever a beggar, going around and begging for crumbs from the table of the IMF and all. Some years ago, when the Burkina people under Sankara decided to change the name from Opa Volta to Burkina Faso, it was significant. People of dignity, that's what the word Burkina Faso means. And now, even if you follow what the young man, a soldier, trying to do in Burkina Faso, almost like what Sankara had wanted to do, you see he's bringing some dignity to his people. Even these Niger and others, where they have had the courage to tell the French to please pack up and go, we don't see you. All these are things that a country must be able to do. But if you delight in simply sitting by for the IMF to give you money, for the bilaterals to drop you this, for them to balance your budget for you, and that you think makes you happy, and that's what your country needs, then you are forever enslaved. So you have a long-term vision of making your country self-sufficient, become to sit equally and talk equally with the so-called big people. See, that's why when Nanado, earlier in his presidency, used the term Ghana beyond aid, I got excited about that.
Right.
I thought it resonated just like a champion's Operation Feed Yourself and Self-Reliance also did. You see, but of course,
Operation Feed Your Industries.
Of what became of the beyond aid stuff. So if you're a leader and your vision is to get your country out of this, then you will make policies that will attain that. It's not a short-term thing you can achieve. It can be 20 years, can be 30 years. But we must begin and have a shared vision that tells us, look, this we're not going to do because A, B, C, D. This we have to do because in the end, it's going to change our circumstance for us to become that. Then your people can move on. But if you are not seeing that, and it's over the past years, 17 times, IMF comes and give directions, and we follow things that we ourselves know is bad. We wait for them to tell us, don't do this, then we are happy. Okay, we won't do this, give us this. This is what I think the young people, you're referring to the young people. These are the kinds of questions you need to ask your leaders, people who want to rule you. Ask them those questions. Do you want to keep us enslaved forever under the international monetary system? Or do you want us to gain some kind of dignity and self-respect? If you can answer this, how do you do it? Then that will force you to introduce policies that will liberate the country from where we are.
I see. Now, Prof, let me wrap up this conversation with you and ask if the young people of this country, the kind of future that you envision for the young people are actually in sync with that kind of thinking and the vision you have for them. What do you say?
It's a mixed bag, you see, because first of all, I think to a large extent, our young people are being miseducated by the educational system we have. Because going to the university, getting a bachelor's, master's, doctorate, professorship, whatever, you have to know that if you yourself do not re-educate yourself after going through that process, then you become an appendage of the global educational system that continuously make Africans subservient to the system. And the education, you have to ask yourself, what is the use of education if it's not for self-liberation and the liberation of society? If your education is going to make you deepen the tragic situation.
Prof, I thank you very much indeed for your time. We're grateful, as always.
Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. And that's Prof. Bafo. You heard the Prof?
I did indeed.
You don't want to say anything?
I mean, a law is just echoing the sentiments. You know, we're all living in the same country, whilst others pretend not to see or to understand or to be aligned with what the masses are really feeling. You hear from those whose voices are revered, and that's enough to settle the conversation for me.
Okay. Listen to this, people of God. Listen.
We must be honest enough to admit that the Akufo-Addo government, despite chalking successes in road and health infrastructure, tourism, and of course education, it has struggled to deliver on a number of fronts. We started out saying that we're breaking dependency on the Western donor agencies. The slogan, Ghana Beyond Aid, rang from the Jubilee House with intensity and vigor. But today, we lie on a stretcher before the International Monetary Fund, the IMF, and Ghana has become, in the eyes of many, a case study of how not to do it. It is true that the international climate has been hostile, but how many countries have had inflation skyrocket to 54%? And in fact, food inflation hitting the roof. And our city only just slightly recovering after a wild tailspin last year. These are stark signals of economic distress, and we cannot hide these facts. We've had to endure a painful debt exchange program with our pensioners laying siege at the finance ministry. Our party, the MPP, cannot afford to put forward those who led us to this state. I want to repeat myself. Our party, the MPP, therefore, cannot afford to put forward those who led us to this state and expect Ghanaians to embrace them during the 2024 election. We need a new face, a pair of clean hands, a leader to reconnect with our base and end the trust of Ghanaians.